Hey guys, so we're here with Coach Sahar Nusseibeh. Coach, how you doing today?
I'm doing great, Christian. How are you?
I can't complain. I can't complain. So when did you realize coaching was something you wanted to do for the rest of your life?
I think that hit me in high school, actually, Christian. I had a high school coach who just had such a strong reputation in Ohio. I'm from Ohio, where high school girls basketball is so big in Ohio. And I actually transferred in my junior year to North Canton Hoover and had a man named Paul Wackerly as my coach. And he lit a fire in me for coaching. And I don't know if I realized it at the time, but when I went on to college, I went to school at American University in Washington, D.C., saying that, I want to get into politics. I want to be a U.S. ambassador, this, that, and the other, which was also an interest of mine. But
Mhm.
I think deep down, Coach Wackerly had ignited, like I said, a fire and a passion for coaching. And so it hit me in high school, and I finally came to grips with it once I got into college, and I realized coaching is what I want to do. For Coach Wackerly, we would run through 10 walls if that's what we needed to do, and to be someone who has that much influence on others in a great way, that's what I want to do with my life. And just to see how many lives he impacted and influenced in such a positive way, I saw coaching as the perfect avenue for me.
Awesome, awesome. Um, so you're a native of, I want to make sure I get this right, Uniontown or Canton, Ohio. Is that correct?
Yes, Uniontown, Canton, Ohio. Yes,
Okay.
sir.
Awesome, awesome. So if you were to use one word to describe a basketball player from Ohio, what would it be and why?
Extremely tough and fundamentally sound. Um, and the why is difficult. And I don't know why it's so difficult, but I'll tell you, and I'm biased, so I might have some people who are willing and wanting to argue with me. But
Here we go. Here we go.
Ohio high school girls basketball, there's just nothing like it. And again, I'm speaking because I was an Ohio girl. I'll say Western New York girls basketball is impressive, but across the board, across the state, Ohio girls, majority of those players are extremely well coached, and they're just tough. And I don't want to generalize an entire state, but I'm going to. And so I might be a little unpopular here on this podcast because I know it's not an Ohio podcast. But when you go and even recruit in Ohio, you just watch really good basketball. The one downside to Ohio girls basketball, I will tell you, they do not have a shot clock. They need to get one going because they'll play a little bit of stall ball, and that's not basketball to me.
Mhm.
So other than the stall ball, though, you just find that, and I guess to answer your question, the grassroots of girls basketball and basketball in general in Ohio is really strong. There's just a lot of grassroots programming where you've got young children who are kind of being taught the game really early and being taught not just the game but the fundamentals of the game early. And so once that's established at an early age, they stick with it and they stick in their programs, and they move up from elementary to middle school to high school. And then you've got a group of young women and young men who have been together for years. And so naturally that chemistry is there. They've all been taught the game since they were about 5 years old, and they've stayed together. So I think that's where the quality of play as a system comes in.
I'm a Jersey boy, so I'm always New Jersey. I think across the board, Jersey has the best basketball, but that's just me. And like you, we have no shot clock, which I don't understand, like why not? But what can you do?
Yeah.
What can you do? But the game is still good. The game is still good.
I agree. Hey, I'm not bashing Jersey at all. I agree. I've seen some really good high school basketball in Jersey.
Awesome, awesome. So if you were to use one word to describe your coaching style, what would it be and why?
Hmm. Authentic.
Okay.
I'm really true to who I am. And I think our staff is authentic as well in terms of our coaching style. We are who we are, and we tell anybody that we're not going to change for anybody coming in. If you were to walk in our gym, Christian, and you were to watch practice versus you not being there, it's still going to look the same. There's no flash, there's no show. We're just extremely authentic, and we're also, I'm going to give another word, intentional. We're extremely intentional in what we do as a staff. Personally, I believe when you have intention behind anything you do, and it's thought out, and it's put together in a way where you have very few, if not a single-minded focus towards something, you get to where you want to go quicker. So we're really intentional and simple in terms of what we do on the floor. And the great thing about it is I have 2 staff members currently who are bought into that style of coaching as well. Very authentic, very intentional. Less is more in our minds. We're not going to inundate our players with information. I was that young coach that did that and thought it was the most important thing to provide as much information as we could. And then I realized really quickly that our job isn't to provide information to these players. Our job is to get them to execute on the floor. And the more information you're providing for them, you can feel great if you're given, we got the FDU scout and I'm giving, every set they run and in every tendency they have, I can feel great as a coach that I've provided that information. But I don't know, with our young women today, I think they'll walk into that game with their heads just spinning. And when your head's spinning, you're not actually moving your body. And then we're all upset that they're not executing the game plan. And we gave them all this information. And over time, I've learned that less is more. And that's really how our staff operates. We're going to find very few things to focus on. We're going to be really clear and intentional about how we prep and how we execute that focus in our planning and our practice. And then again, our job is based off of how well does our team execute. And I think one thing we've learned is when we provide less and we're really clear in what we're looking for, our players understand and they're able to execute better.
Awesome. Awesome. So you played, like you said before, at American University.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me about that time in your life, your playing days. And looking back now that you're coaching, like I always say to people, we learn through observation what to do and what not to do. So I'm sure as a player, you say, you know what? I know if I ever get into the business, I'm not going to do that. And you saw something, say, you know what? I'm definitely doing that because that changed my life in such a positive way. So just tell me about that time and some things that really gravitated towards you.
Absolutely. So American, and I'm going to be completely honest, because transparency, it's the only way I know how here. I came into a new program and a build at American, and had some great coaches. No one better in terms of kind of putting together and constructing a program and a championship level program than Melissa McFerrin. She is a legend. She's a tremendous coach at what she does. Practice planning, hindsight, I looked back, we ran a lot, but when I look back, it was highly organized, highly structured, and we got a lot done. So I have a lot of appreciation for that. Like I said, I came into the beginning stages of a build, and the really neat thing was, and again, I didn't see it until it was done, but we got progressively better every year. Individually, I did not have the trajectory that I would have wanted. I probably had my best years early on in my career, unfortunately. But at the end of the day, I understood, and I understand even better now, that your job when you come in is to always bring better, and that's part of recruiting. So if you inherit a program, if you're at the bottom of the conference, which we weren't great at the time, the coaching staff is going to bring more talent. And I just simply got outplayed. And at 19 years old, I couldn't see it. At 34 years old, I joke with she was a sophomore my senior year. She outplayed me. She was just flat out better. And she drove me crazy, but now I understand. And I still give her a hard time to this day. But that's the job of any staff. And it was hard for me to see at the time, but now I understand. And your job is always to recruit better than what you currently have if you want to get better, and as a current player, you can either say, woe is me, or you can step up and work on your crafts. And that's an opportunity that every player has. So that's one thing I learned. The other thing that was something I learned is just the quality of coach-player relationship and how impactful that can be. I'd be in the gym a ton as a college student athlete, and there were so many times I kind of wish I would have had my coach in there with me. And I learned going through that experience that as an assistant, I would, if I ever heard a ball bouncing, I was going in there. Whether I could work them out or not, I was going to go ask how their day was going, ask what I could do for them, ask how I could help them, because those are the moments where you can have just wonderful organic conversation, and you can have conversations that those kids remember for the rest of their life. And you never know how much impact you can have by simply asking, how are you doing? And checking in and showing that you care in kind of the most organic, non-scheduled moments. And so as an assistant, what I learned was you have to carve out time for your players. You have to carve out time, and you have to spend time to show them that you care about them, because everyone has that saying, they don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. That's true. But if you want to make true impact on young people, where, when they're struggling, your words have real weight, you have to have a relationship with them. And so time spent with players is imperative. And that's one thing I learned through my personal experience.
So your first big taste in the coaching world, you worked for the WNBA, you worked as an intern for the Atlanta Dream, Washington Mystics, both two really good programs. I know, big fan of the Mystics and what they've been doing for the past, 10 years or so, since they, how I coached the boat. But, and you also work for USA Basketball. So I guess just tell me a little bit about that time and what you pulled from there.
Oh, that was such a fun time for me. So I was still in college with the internships. So going into my junior year, I interned with the Mystics, and that was a fun time. I mean, I'm 17 years old. I get up, I work out, and then I go to Mystics practice. I'm the pad for the post players. On game days, I'm running and getting Elena Beard her energy drink, trying to find it somewhere in the Verizon Center at the time, trying to find her energy drink before warm-ups. With the Atlanta Dream, it was really neat. So Marinelle Metters, who was the assistant with the Mystics, her and I just had a good relationship. And the following year, she got the head job at the Atlanta Dream for their inaugural season, which is really, to go in, and be a part of an inaugural season, that's really exciting. So she reached out to me the next spring. Again, you can't ask for anything cooler as a 20-year-old. She was willing to pay for my summer housing, and all I had to do was pay for my food and bring my car. And first week on the job, we're in downtown Atlanta in these makeshift offices because everything's getting going. It's inaugural season, We got LaChina Robinson, who everybody knows what a big name LaChina Robinson is now. LaChina at the time was doing color commentary for Georgia Tech women's basketball. So she was just trying to get in. She'd stop by the office. She invited me to play with her church league. I was playing church league basketball with LaChina Robinson. I'm going to Georgia Tech and playing open gyms with the Georgia Tech girls. But first week in these offices, Coach Metters walks in and she's like, "We need a video coordinator. Who wants to be our video coordinator?" And my hand shot up. I didn't know what it meant, but I was like, "Let's go." And so she gave me that title. And that title eventually got me my grad assistantship with Jamel Elliott at Cincinnati. And so I say all that to say, what I learned was take every opportunity you can and be excited about every opportunity that you have. I mean, I was like a kid in a candy shop down in Atlanta, doing whatever they needed me to do, not having a clue what it meant to be a video coordinator and messing up, but having awesome people around me. Katie Stedding being one of them. She was an assistant at the time. Now she's at Stanford back in California. But having people that were helping me learn through it was absolutely incredible. But I guess the biggest thing I learned, Christian, was just seize opportunities. Don't be afraid to not raise your hand. Raise your hand. And if you don't know, you'll struggle through it. But eventually you'll figure it out.
Yeah. So if I remember correctly, you're part of the BDS family agency.
Yes. Yes.
So most people don't know that coaches, assistant or head coaches have agents. Um, Tell me about why you decided to be a part of that agency. Brian's very well respected guy. If you know, you know, you know.
Mhm.
So why was that the right fit for you? Um, some things they've done for you to help your career, and in regards to like navigating certain situations. So why them? Why they make sense, and how they've helped you?
Yeah. Well, so it started when I chose to attend one of his conferences. I think at the time it was in, I think the Poconos. This one was in Pennsylvania. And that was maybe 5 years ago now. So I attended the conference, and you're absolutely right. When you know, and fit is a thing. So fit's a thing with recruiting, fit's a thing with everybody. You have to fit as people first, and your values have to align. And so I attended this conference and I met his wife. And I had a good connection with his wife. We just talked a little bit, just being a friendly person, wanting to meet who this woman was. And after the conference, and you're absolutely right, Christian, Ryan is a really big name in women's basketball. He's very highly respected. And you don't just get to pick to be represented by Brian Stanchek. He kind of, it has to be a fit, and he's going to kind of um, check you out a little bit, but it's pretty amazing. I mean, the connection I had with his wife, I think he was impressed with the fact that I had gone out of my way to ask how she was doing and connect with her as a person, and not just look at her as someone who was checking people in. And so then Brian and I had a couple conversations, and we realized that our values align, and that he wanted to represent someone like me and help someone like me. So that's how we got connected. And it just goes to show you the type of person Brian Stanchik is. Um, and that's a pretty cool story. And I guess that would also be a little lesson to anyone who's listening in. Treat everyone kindly. Just be genuinely interested in people, and good things happen, connections happen, and relationships develop based off of how you treat a complete stranger sometimes. But going back to Brian and what his agency has done to help me, they've been incredible. So um, Brian is always someone that I can call and ask for professional advice. He's someone who's constantly checking in to see where I am, to see how he can assist me, to see if he can connect me with anybody who could assist me if he cannot. If it's something as simple as needing to talk to a head coach who's had years of experience, who's gone through the gamut, he's that connector. In terms of professional development, he's always about helping develop coaches in general, whether you're in a client of his or not. He hosts a ton of professional development. During the pandemic, he hosted a couple of Zooms that were free of charge, and again, not just open to clients. So Brian really does have a heart to help coaches, and that's something I respect tremendously. Once I had the opportunity here at Canisius, he obviously helped navigate kind of the meat and potatoes of the contract and all of that type of thing, which I want nothing to do with. So I was very grateful for Brian to handle that. But he's just been a constant support. He's always thinking of you. He's always following up. And again, it's a relationship. It's not just this. He's my agent, and that's that. And when it comes time for a job, he's going to help me. He's constantly checking in to see how you're doing, and it just speaks volume to him as a person.
Mhm, mhm. So you mentioned your first job, grad assistant, Cincinnati.
Mhm.
You had a bunch of titles. You're a grad assistant, VC, academic liaison. So you was putting in the work. You was
Yeah.
putting in the work, which is awesome. I love it. I definitely love it. So also work with the post players. So you was out there.
Yeah.
Tell me about that time, because obviously when you first start out, you gotta work like the job you want. You work like the job you want. You gotta put in the work and the hours. So just tell me about that time, and what can you pull from that time to really help you elevate?
Yeah. I might go on a tangent here. So Christian, you're going to have to cut me off.
We're
So,
good.
okay. That was honestly, that was one of the best experiences of my life. It really, really was. I was fresh out of college. I'm working for Jamel Elliott, and anybody in the basketball world knows who Jamel Elliott is. She was in her first year. So again, I was really lucky with my timing. I got to be a part of a lot of firsts. And that might be why I like builds, because I've been a part of a lot of builds. But Jamel Elliott was hired at Cincinnati and brought me on. And I can go into how I was hired, but that's another story for another day. But getting to work for a winner and a competitor like Jamel Elliott is an experience that's second to none. The fire that that woman has for what she does is absolutely incredible. So watching her firsthand, being on a sideline, being at practice, and seeing how she coached, and knowing that she had 16 years with the best program in the country. That's the experience she's bringing to Cincinnati. And just knowing that as a 22-year-old, I was taking mental notes. I was going home after practice and writing everything she did, everything she said, all the ideas, just for when I would have my shot. I want to try to emulate someone like Jamel. So I learned a lot from her passion, her fire, and her mentality. That's plain and simple. In terms of the rest of the staff, she hired a veteran staff who I also learned from Larita Wilcher, Mark Elin, who is, if anybody again knows Mark Elin, head coach at Toledo, head coach at Xavier. Mark Elin, X's and O's, and just an all-around incredible man with so much experience. I would sit in Mark Elin's office and pick his brain. Larita Wilcher at the time was the recruiting coordinator. So I would listen to her get on the phone with coaches and kids, and just how she was so dynamic in her personality. And she kind of took me under her wing, kind of like a big sister. And she'd take me out for lunch and talk me through, hey, when you get into the profession, when you're 2 feet in as a coach, this is what you want to try to do. This is what you want to try to add value to. Recruiting is huge. You want to be a really great recruiter. You want to be genuine and authentic, which is something that stuck with me. Don't be fake, be who you are. And then Etod Moore, he was on that staff too. And he's kind of the life of the party, keep things light. He's the guy that's going to hook up the girls with a new piece of apparel to get them excited. He's kind of that guy. And he ran the post players and I assisted with him. So I had just so many incredible people to learn from, which again, you just have to be a sponge. When you're young and you're entering the profession, whether it be a grad assistant, an ops spot, maybe a first year assistant. And this is something I learned at Holy Cross is you can't come in guns blazing, even though you want to. You can think you're smart and you can think you know things, but at the end of the day, you're being immersed in an entirely different world. And your job at that point is to work your tail off and to be a sponge and to learn from all the people who have a little bit more experience than you. And to just, again, take notes. Take notes. At the end of the day, I had a journal and I was writing everything down. What worked, what didn't work, how to apply it when my time comes. And I've done that for years, and it's helped me tremendously.
You mentioned Holy Cross. You went on there to be an assistant coach under Bill Gibbons. Tell me about that experience.
Yeah. So again, Christian, I've been really fortunate to work for some legends in the game who have had a ton of experience. When I went to Holy Cross, that was not a year one. That was an opposite of year one. I think that was Coach Gibbons' like 25th year as the head coach at Holy Cross. So he had been at Worcester at that college for quite some time. So I was entering something that was already established. So that was a good experience for me, just to know what it's like to enter a winning tradition and how a program is run from that standpoint. It was a little surreal for me at first, knowing that my first job was in the same conference that I played college ball in. I still had my young person self where it was hard for me to wear the purple the first couple days, but I quickly got over it. And I'll tell you, I think when I got over it was when I was first hired, I made some calls to the players just to introduce myself. And this is something I had dreamed of for years, is being a coach. And finally I had my opportunity. And I'll never forget it. My first person I connected with, her name is Kelly Hamner. She has a family now, living down, I think, back in Virginia. And I'm talking to Kelly and I'm just introducing myself. And this is before I've met any of them. And we're hanging up and she's like, all right, coach, I'll see you later. And she was the first player that ever called me coach. And I'll never forget that she was the first player that ever called me coach, because to be called coach was everything I had worked for. And I think there's a lot of pride with that title. And I'm not one for titles, but that title's a little different because I think coach encapsulates so many things that are great. So that was pretty neat. Annie Mack was the associate head at the time. Again, another legend up in New England, had been at the best of the best institutions, whether they were D1 or D2. She's currently at Bentley now. But she's just an incredible mind, and an incredible personality. I don't think that woman ever has a down day where her energy is low. Consistently high energy, bringing it every single day. And she taught me a lot too. She actually was the person who talked to me about kind of the importance of being a sponge and taking it all in. So Coach Mack taught me a ton, as well as Coach Gibbons. And then Shantae Bonds was there at the time, another young assistant who worked with the guards and was just a tremendous developmental coach. Just incredible.
Mm-hmm. So next up, Bowling Green, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So the MAC,
Yes, the Mid-American.
That is a good conference.
Christian, that's a great conference. That conference, that's a great conference.
There are some killers in there. I think 2 or 3 years ago, they had a couple teams in the Sweet 16, and they're good. I mean, it's a great conference that a lot of people don't know about, or doesn't get the respect that I think it should. So, why to jump there? What made it make sense for you? And what made that school so special? What did you get from that time there? Because I think you're a person that moves with purpose. I could tell that. So why there?
Yeah, for me, it was a no-brainer for so many levels, Christian, or so many reasons, I should say. You just hit the first one on the head right there. The MAC, the Mid-American Conference. It's arguably, the best high mid-major conference in the country. There's a couple other really strong conferences, but that's consistently a top 10 conference, and consistently has multiple teams in the tournament. You're referencing maybe 3 years ago, it was Buffalo and Central. Both made the tournament and both made it to the Sweet 16. So there's argument that there should be more than 2 coming out of that conference. It's a high octane offensive conference. You've got to bring your best as a player and a coach every single night. And I knew that making that move would make me better as a coach, because it was that next level type of coaching that's required. The other thing about it was going back home. I'm from Ohio. I was recruited by BG and I wasn't good enough. And it's a dream for an Ohio kid to go play for a school like BG. At the time, Kurt Miller was there. But Coach Roos, Kurt Miller's right-hand woman, I should say, was with him for 10 years. And she had just finished up her first year, and they had been pretty successful. And the tradition of Bowling Green women's basketball, especially under Coach Miller and now Robin Freilich, was incredible. I mean, their tradition of excellence and dominance in that conference was known by everybody in the Midwest. So I knew I was going to go be challenged as a coach and grow. And you just said it. My thought process in terms of career is move with purpose. You're not just moving a move. You move when you're tapped out where you are, and it's time to grow and challenge yourself. So that's what made sense to me, was going to Bowling Green. And I'm so grateful for my time at BG. And I'm grateful because Jennifer Roos made me better. I'll never forget the very first scouting report I had to prepare for her. She let me do the exhibition. I forget who we were playing, but it wasn't a real game yet. It was an exhibition. And so I'm putting all my time into watching the scout and breaking down the scout. And I think I've got it. I think it's great. I think it looks great. I think this, that, the other. So she takes me into her office and she meets with me, and she's looking at this, and she has a red pen, and she is just ripping it up. Well, where's this playing? Why isn't this here? And this, and just asking me all the questions and challenging me and making me better. And I knew very quickly after that first scout that Coach Roos was going to make me a whole lot better, and she did. She's one of the most thorough people I've ever worked for. And I think she got that from Coach Miller. And I think it's a reason they were so successful. And that's something I take pride in being as well. And I know I started this podcast by saying less is more for the players. That doesn't mean we shouldn't know everything that's going on. That doesn't mean we're not the most prepared and have all the information, because as coaches, we're able to retain it. And we've got to be able to pull in our bank come game time and know what an opponent's going to run and know how to talk to our kids in order to stop a end of game sideline or an ATO that a coach loves. We've got to know all that stuff. And Coach Roos really helped me understand the importance of being prepared and knowing your opponent like the back of your hand. So Coach Roos helped me with that. And I had the pleasure of working with Jesse Fleming and JC Brooks on the staff. And JC is one of the most passionate people I know in terms of a coach. And she's got a lot of fire too. She's now the head coach at Cortland University and has done a great job there. So learned a ton from JC. Jesse, head coach at St. Bonaventure. And Jesse is great because he's got such an out of the box way of thinking. And so Jesse was the defensive coordinator and I was his assistant on the defensive side of the ball. And I learned so much from Jesse in terms of prep, where I hadn't been exposed to the nuances of just disruptions that we could throw at opponents, when to mix up defenses, little tweaks and concepts that were easy adjustments for our team to understand, but that were so out of the box. And so Jesse really kind of helped me with the defensive side of the ball. The other thing that Jesse did that I really appreciated was you've got to be a constant learner in this profession. If you're not learning and you're not growing, you're old news and you're not helping your players. And so you have to want to continue to hone your craft as a coach. And Jesse was the epitome of head down. He's all about getting better. And so off-season time for Jesse was making rounds to WNBA training camps, to NBA training camps, to the highest level in college men's basketball. And Jesse would bring me with him. And I always appreciated that. But I learned firsthand how much Jesse took in terms of learning in the offseason and honing his craft as a coach. And I learned the importance of that just kind of through observation of him.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Awesome. So now you're back my way on the East Coast.
Yeah.
And you're the recruiting coordinator there, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's July, going into the gym, we're in Chicago. You're looking for players, you're looking for killers. What gets you? What gravitates towards you? Is it like speed, athleticism, shooting? What makes you pull out your packet and be like, I need this kid right there?
Yeah. I'll be honest, Christian. So I'm under Heather Woolen, and Heather Woolen was notorious on the East Coast in terms of her recruiting prowess.
Oh yeah.
I mean, notorious. So Villanova, she's bringing in tremendous talent. She was only at Virginia Tech for a year, but just getting it done. And her big thing, again, she made me better. I'm coming in the first day with all my thoughts on every intricacy of this kid and every intricacy of that kid. And she's like, Sahar, flat out, do they make us better or not? Like that's all we need to know. If they're making us better, great. If they're not, okay, let's move on. And so, Christian, it became a lot more simplified for me. And Heather is one of the best people at evaluating and bringing in talent. And I think her ability to simplify, do they make us better and we'll make it work? That was it. The one non-negotiable I will tell you, regardless of talent and skill set, is for Heather and for us at Manhattan, they had to be good in the open court. They had to want to play fast, which means they needed a motor. If you didn't have a motor, that was a non-negotiable for us. So if we're looking at the intangibles, you had to have a motor and you couldn't be a jerk. You had to be a good teammate. I mean, obviously we don't want any poor teammates. So those were two things that were non-negotiables. But other than that, in terms of talent, they had to be winners and they had to make us better. And if you could go back to Heather Woolen and say, this kid's a winner, that was her word. Is she a winner? If you could say, yes, she's a winner, then she was on board. If you could not, without any type of hesitation, say she was a winner, Heather wasn't with it. And then we just moved on.
Mm-hmm. That was a great time for you. I'm sure of it. Looking back at the time with Coach Heather, um, some of the most important thing you learned from an X's and O's standpoint.
Yeah. I think the biggest thing would be trusting your players, trusting what they bring naturally and allowing them to do their thing. So for us, Heather really gave me a lot of ownership on the defensive side of the ball, knowing that I had helped on the defensive side of the ball at Bowling Green. So not only trusting her players, but trusting her staff. She really gave me a lot of autonomy on the defensive side in terms of practice prep and all that sort of thing. But our players that we had were straight up defenders. I mean, they could defend the ball. Lynette Tate from the city and a couple other kids were just really, really good on ball defenders where you could give them a little bit of freedom and they would make some things happen. Amani Tatum was a transfer from JMU who had played one season before we got there. So again, some really good natural defenders. And for Heather, it was, hey, let's not try to box these kids. If they're exceptional on the defensive side of the ball, then let's be exceptional on the defensive side of the ball. And let's give them freedom to make plays. Let's give them freedom to gamble a little bit, because at the end of the day, if you restrict just that natural feel for the game in terms of the defensive side, now they're not making plays. And you actually started our conversation off talking about one of our current kids, Raimi Porter. You want playmakers. You have to have those playmakers, those kids that have a feel. And you never want to restrict kids that have a feel too much. And so that's what I think I learned from Heather was let them do what they do. Let them do what they do. I do think you have to have a little bit of control. Obviously, we can't, especially if they're young, they can't just be reckless all the time because the gamble is going to get you a negative more than it's a positive. But you have to trust your kids to have a feel and make plays.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You know, you were chosen as a WBCA 30 for 30 coach, correct?
Yes.
How important was that to you in your growth?
You know, it was incredible to be recognized for that. So 30 under 30, I think I was nominated when I was at Bowling Green, and it's an incredible recognition, and it also keeps you hungry, because if you receive something like that in your 20s, you're competitive with yourself too in your career trajectory. And so my career trajectory at the time wasn't, well, the next move needs to be this, but it got me thinking, wow, okay, if I'm being recognized for my work right now, what more am I capable of? And how can I expand what I'm doing as a coach? How can I get better as a coach in different ways? I've gotten better X's and O's in game prep at Bowling Green. At Manhattan, again, got better as the defensive coordinator on the defensive side of the ball. At Holy Cross, I became a better post developer. So I guess what 30 under 30 did for me was help challenge me in terms of, okay, Sahar, this is where you are. What more, or how can you grow further? You know, what more can you do to be better for your players, for your staff, for your head coach? So it kind of motivated me. It really motivated me to up it to a whole nother level in terms of my work. And again, not saying that, you know, you burn your wheels to the ground and you burn out, but you work more intentionally. So again, how am I allocating my work? When I go home, am I watching film? Am I making calls? Where can I add more value? How can I be better?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So next up, Miami, Ohio, Coach Hendricks.
Yes.
Again, moving with purpose. So looking back, why was Miami, Ohio the perfect place for you to elevate your career to another level?
Easy, easy, easy. And it wasn't easy at the time because I knew what Manhattan was about to do. But in terms of personal choice, I knew I needed to add more tools to my tool belt before taking over a program myself. And I knew Coach Hendricks was the perfect person to teach me just different pieces that I was lacking. And I guess I'm being a little harsh on myself saying lacking, but I guess areas that I wanted to be better. So one thing I've always found a strength of mine is my relationships with my players. I'm someone who coaches far beyond practice in the court. I coach for the young women in terms of developing them outside of the court. And that's where my real passion lies. And I identified that in Deanna Hendricks. I saw the passion that woman has for development beyond the court. But where I saw I could grow and learn from her was the how. So we both are passionate about the same what, developing young women, not just as players, but as people. Well, where Coach Hendricks is just entirely new level and new age is that how piece. She is so exceptional in terms of her emotional intelligence and developing relationships with her players. And her how is so different from what is known traditionally that I knew I needed to go learn and immerse myself in her program in terms of how does she do it? How does she connect with these players on such a high level and in such a different way? Because she operates extremely different. And I can delve a little bit more into that. What I mean by that is she's extremely fluid. And she used that word with me on my interview. When I went to Miami, I was asking her questions. I asked coaching style from her, and she said, the best word I can give you is I'm fluid. And I love that answer. And what she meant by that is every day is different. Every day it's our job. And this is her opinion. I believe it's still her opinion and mindset is it's our job as coaches to meet our players where they are and to help them progress. It's not, hey, come to me and this is the way we're going to do it, regardless of how you feel that day. It's, hey, how do you feel today? Okay, it might be a waste of time if we go 3 hours because your bodies are all tired. So let me hear you. Let me get on your level. Let me ask you where you are and expect an honest response. And now let's go from there. And let's maximize the time we have together in getting better, but let's also meet our players where they are. She did that with our players. She did that with our staff. And I think she's incredible for it. And I think when you're willing to not be stubborn, I think when you're willing to be fluid and you're willing and wanting to meet people where they are, now you earn their respect, you win them over. Now that connection with them in terms of your relationship, whether it's a colleague, a coach to player, whoever, it's that much stronger. And so now when you do have that accountability piece, maybe you have players who aren't living up to the standard. Now, when you hold them accountable, they respond in the way you want them to respond because that respect and that relationship is there because you've gone and you've met them where they were consistently. And Coach Hendricks is just one of the best in the business when it comes to that. So that's why I chose to go to Miami, get back into the other MAC, be challenged on the basketball court, continue to grow as a coach. But she's that person that just showed me that coaching doesn't have to be that traditional way of being stubborn and stuck to your guns and you've got to adapt to me. No, we can be fluid and we can make far greater impact being fluid and being intentional with our everyday.
You were the defensive coordinator there. We talked about defenses before we started this and how you both love some good defense.
Yeah.
So what were some things that were very important to your style there? Now that you have your own program, what's your style? Did you really hone your style there? What are your non-negotiables defensively as a coach? So just tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah. So at Miami, we were heavy man. And I am partial to man-to-man defense, but we were heavy man. And with our personnel, we were not the personnel to be pressing for 40 minutes, to be in full denial, wreak havoc. That wasn't us. So what I had brought to Miami, and I worked with Tiffany Swafford, which we could have a whole podcast on my girl, Tiffany Swafford. That woman, that's one of my people. But Coach Swaff and I worked together on the defensive side of the ball. And we took basically the personnel that we had and we looked at our strengths and we looked at our deficiencies. And we kind of assessed what a tough conference the MAC is in terms of how good every team is at scoring the basketball. And we said, okay, exactly what you just said, Christian. Okay. Looking at our personnel, what have to be our non-negotiables? Like what has to be clear as day to these players? And for us, our non-negotiables were ball pressure, protecting the paint, and finishing possessions. And those non-negotiables have carried over to Canisius College because I'm in a similar boat where personnel wise, and you did see us press, and we mixed it up. And eventually I want to get to a team where we're deep enough where we can press a lot more. But in terms of being able to last till March, unfortunately, we can't be a constant pressure team. We just don't have the personnel or the depth. So right now in the half court, our non-negotiables are ball pressure, protecting the paint, and finishing possessions. Ball pressure and guarding your yard. Guarding your yard is something Tiffany Swafford actually spearheaded at Miami on ball defense. And she actually made me a believer. So I'm from American University, where I was playing with other athletes. And even at Manhattan, we had some athletes that could move. And so I'm all about heavy ball pressure and the kick step or the push step. I don't know if you've ever heard of that terminology, but I'm going to push out laterally, and I'm just going to tell you where I want you to go. And you can cross, and I'll run step to recover, but I'm going to push out laterally, and I'm not giving up any ground. So that was me. That was my mentality at Manhattan. Taught the push step, the kick step, whatever you want to call it at Manhattan. And then I come to Miami, and Swafford's like, well, I don't know if we have the personnel for that. And this is where I learned from Deanna Hendricks, we can't be stubborn. So I looked and I'm like, you know what, Coach Swaff, you're right. And so for us, it was all about ball pressure. But then once that ball hits the deck, we've got to be able to pop back and guard our yard. Mm-hmm. So we taught back into the side, which is essentially, I've got my measuring stick out. I've got my chop, which I'm chopping your face. Like I'm chopping, taking away vision for pass or shot. And then as soon as eyes go down or I see a jab, I'm not shifting left or right. It's a small pop back directly straight back. So I'm not going for any jab. It's popping back, active feet, and I'm keeping my measuring stick the entire time you have that ball. So if you drive, I'm retreating. And essentially the only thing you're giving up, Christian, is a contested pull, but you're containing the ball. And so naturally that became a huge thing for us at Miami. And we became better on the ball because of Tiffany Swafford. Nothing to do with me. I hope she watches this podcast and hears this shout out, because she was big on that. And we were a lot more successful once we decided to pop back instead of kick step. Protecting the paint. That's tied in with guarding your yard, that measuring stick, again, containment, on ball containment. But another thing I'm really big on is being loaded up in the gaps. So we're not denying, because if you do get beat, you need to see a wall. You need to see two players, one pass away, who are loaded up, ready to stunt on any downhill dribble. So that's a big thing for us in terms of protecting the paint, is being one pass away, being really loaded up in the gap. And stunting early and aggressively. And then the last piece, which we are struggling with, Christian, and we got to figure it out here at Canisius, is finishing possessions. You've got to take pride. And when the shot goes up, you don't watch, you work, because the rebounders are working. The ones giving up the rebounds, they're watching. We know where the shot's going. Y'all got to hit a body. You got to take space, and you've got to secure that defensive rebound with two hands so that we can go do what we want to do on the offensive end. Sorry, we could have done the whole thing on defense. I could keep going.
You'll be back.
Okay, great.
You'll be back. We'll talk that. Two things. I'm not going to hold you on this subject a little bit. One, you said gap. You run pack line?
Not pack line. So we don't force middle. We are going to send to the corners. So if I'm on the wing, I'm sending to the corners. If I'm on the corner, I'm sending to the baseline. Okay. And when I say sending, Christian, I'm not angled. I'm squared. I'm splitting the high foot or that top shoulder, and it's more so influencing. I want to influence corners. I want to influence baseline.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And you mentioned guard your yard. Now I'm gonna tell you something. I live by that. My things are no wasted motion and guard your yard. I'll tell you, I seriously, look, I wear this to practice all the time, and I love it.
I love that.
I put our team locked in. But
Oh, that's awesome.
this is my thing. In Jersey, we play defense. So guard your yard is it. Your man's in front of you, you don't get beat. So it's
I love
awesome
that.
that you had said that. Incredible, coach, incredible. So you become the head coach at Canisius. Why was this an ideal place for you to make the jump?
Yeah, I think I knew on my interview that this was the spot for me. I was able to meet with other head coaches in the department, and once I learned what my fellow coaches were about here, and I learned what Canisius really was. It's a place of really, really, really good people who work their tails off and who are about helping each other be successful beyond just themselves. And the feel I got from fellow head coaches on my interview was just that. They are, how can I help you? How can I support you? And let's find a way to get it done as an athletic department, as one united family. And that was a big thing for me, was knowing that I would have support, not only from administration, which administration is tremendous here in terms of supporting what we're trying to do, but fellow coaches. I've been a part of athletic departments where, you don't know the other coaches as well as you want. And I think a department is all one team. Canisius athletics were all one team. And so to know that there were other coaches who valued exactly what I value and who are invested beyond their own program, it excited me. The other two reasons I knew this was for me is I had the opportunity to meet 4 of the 5 returners on my interview, and they won my heart. They just flat out won my heart. I had 30 minutes to talk to them and ask them questions, and to kind of hear what they had been through, the adversity that they had been through. I knew in my heart of hearts that I was someone who could help them. I knew I was someone who could help make the seniors experience this last year one that they would enjoy. And I knew for the younger players, I could help build them up. And so they kind of pulled at my heartstrings a little bit unintentionally. They weren't doing it on purpose. They were just who they were, and they won me over. And then the last piece was, I believe Canisius can win this conference. I would never have taken this job if I don't believe that we can get it done here. I believe we can get it done here because I think people make everything. I think we inherited incredible young women. I think this department's special. I think the college has a ton of invested people who care about the well-being of the students beyond just being a student or just being an athlete, but as people. And then lastly, I've surrounded myself with an exceptional staff who challenge me and who make me better every single day. And I fully believe that Canisius women's basketball is on the upward trajectory and that we're going to get it done here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, mentioning your presser, let me make sure I get this one right because I don't want to misquote you. People.
Yeah.
I'm a firm believer in people and relationships. I believe relationships are everything. What we pour in, we'll receive back tenfold. Okay. So you mentioned basically what I took from that is connection, the power of people. So how important of a space would that be in your program, I guess? And, I'm assuming this will be a selling point. As a coach, what do you do to vet out, potential recruits? Because people are everything, but that's kind of like, I'm gonna say a surface level thing. By people, what are you looking for from people? What is your thing? Like you're like, okay, I want to get a certain type of person. Who is that?
Yeah.
What am I looking for?
Yeah. So how you vet that person is through really, really intentional connection and question asking. So when we recruit, we are extremely intentional with the questions we ask. And we get a little deep. Our staff, we're a bunch of nerds and we're really deep. And that's why they're here. I've known these two, Jared Zeidman and Krista Beachy. I've known them for quite some time. And I vetted them way before I got this opportunity. So I knew they were my people. And I think you just asked the question, what is it? It's values alignment. I think you have to have a values alignment, whether that be the staff, whether that be the players. You have to value and be about the same things or similar things at your core. You can have different personalities. I am so excited to bring so many different personalities to this program from so many different diverse backgrounds. I think that's the beauty of sport, is just bringing difference together and uniting difference. But at the end of the day, I think it's really necessary for the core of who we are to be aligned. And the core of who we are needs to be the we above the me, and the hunger to get better every single day. We want hungry people who want to get better on the court, who want to grow in the classroom, who want to grow as teammates, who want to be challenged and grow as leaders. We want them to have the personal vision for themselves that when they come to Canisius, every day, every week, every month, every year, they're going to be challenged, empowered, supported, and they're going to grow. And that in 4 years, when they walk across the stage, when they're receiving their diploma, because that is the goal for us as coaches before anything, their parents, they don't recognize who that daughter is, because she has grown so much in her 4 years in every aspect of her life, not just as a basketball player. And so if you're not hungry to do that, and you're not hungry to be better in every area, this probably isn't the place for you. If you want to get better in every single area and be someone you don't recognize in the best way, yeah, this might be the place.
Feet in, arms out, eyes up. What is that?
Yeah, so that's our program standard. That's the standard that we live and operate by every single day. So feet in, Christian, basically means 2 feet in, full commitment. You can't have 1 feet in this program, or 1 foot in this program. You've got to be fully committed. So that's feet in. It's also being where your feet are, which has to do with being present. Don't want to be worried about what's happened. We don't want to be concerned about what's going to happen. We want to be fully present in the moment, in the here and now, because that's how we can give and be our best. Arms out is about servant leadership, and giving to others, whether that be the community of Buffalo, whether that be the campus community, whether that be a teammate. It's also about being willing to be vulnerable. So when you need help, when you're struggling, extending your arm to a teammate, knowing full well that someone's going to be on the other side of that to pull you up. So willing to be vulnerable and ask for help when you need it. And then eyes up has a lot to do with presence and respect. So eyes up is presence in how you carry yourself. One of the very first meetings with our young women, I said, I want you all to carry yourself with a strong and confident presence. That's my job as a female role model, as your coach. I want you to walk across campus with your chest up, your eyes up, your presence being that of someone who is confident and who believes in herself. So that's a big piece for us. And then the last piece of eyes up is respect. Christian, when you and I talk, I'm going to look you in the eyes, because you deserve to feel seen and you deserve to feel heard. I owe you that respect. And so every young woman who comes through Canisius, when she talks to someone, she's going to talk with her eyes up, and she's going to make that person feel seen and heard, because they matter. So that's, in a nutshell, that is our program standard.
Mm-hmm. Not going to hold you too much longer, Coach. I know I'm asking you a bunch of questions like, oh,
No, you're good.
We good?
We're good. We're good.
All right. Awesome. So you can only be one. So here's the 2 options you have. You can only be one.
Okay.
So, from X's and O's standpoint, you're the guy, down by 1, sideline out of bounds, you cook up. You getting the ball in the hands that you need to get the ball into. The adjustments at halftime are crazy. You're the guy. That is you. You're Brad Stevens at Boston. You're that guy.
Okay.
But personality-wise, you're okay. You're average. You're like, all right. You're just like cool, kind of like, But then there's the other side of it. Your players want to run through a brick wall for you. Mm. You're Coach Carter. You're Denzel Washington and Remember the Titans. You're that guy. Mm-hmm. but X's and O's wise, you're not that guy. You know, you're down by one, y'all need to play. You're looking up at the Raptors like, what are we doing here? Like, you know, you don't know what they're about to do. Should I be in man? Should I be in zone? You don't know. You're not that guy. Mm-hmm. So which one are you? If you got to choose which one you want to be.
So you got here with me right now. You got here with me. I think, Christian, if I have to pick one, I'm here. I'm Coach Carter, I'm Denzel. Mm-hmm. Because the reason I got into coaching was I had a Coach Carter and I had a Coach Denzel. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to run through a brick wall for my high school coach, and we were successful. And it wasn't because he was the best at X's and O's, and I'm not comparing high school basketball to college basketball. I'm not doing that at all. But what I'm saying is, when you've got a team of young women who respect and know you would run through that same wall for them, they're going to find a way to get it done. And it may not be pretty, and execution may not be perfect, but the game of basketball is a game of beautiful imperfection. And at the end of the day, I'll take a gritty team with a knucklehead coach that doesn't know what she's doing, but has people busting it, over the really pretty, well-executed team of young women who their relationship starts and ends on the court. That's not what I'm about. So I'm going to do the Coach Carter Denzel, but I hope that I got both going on, but if I have to pick one, I'll go with the heart.
Awesome. If you could give a young coach one piece of advice, what would it be? So I'm a young coach. You see me running on the floor for the first time, and you could tell palms are sweating all over the place. It's coming at me fast. It's coming at me real fast. And you could tell. So you're about to step on a court, but you see I'm flustered. You got a chance to tell me one piece of advice. What is it?
Deanna Hendricks is going to be really proud of me for this one. I would tell them to breathe. I would tell them to breathe. I would tell them to take a second, just 1 second, to inhale, exhale, and know that you're really good at what you do and you're here for a reason. So I would just tell them to breathe. I think what you just explained is a lot of young people. They're nervous, number one. They don't want to mess up. They're running around, and I was that person. It's like your head is going faster than you can even get out in words. And you feel really overprepared, but you're still nervous, and you've done everything you can to be successful, but you're still nervous and you're not confident in yourself. I think when we actually take a second to slow down and breathe, I think that pause is enough for us to collect our thoughts. And that pause is enough for us to reassure ourselves that we're here for a reason and that we're going to be just fine. So I would tell that young assistant who's running around that they're making me nervous and that I'm going to need them to take a second to breathe.
Awesome. So what can we expect when you see your team play? When Canisius steps on the floor, what are we going to see? We're not talking about wins. We're not talking about losses. Mm-hmm. If I'm somebody in the stands and I'm about to watch you guys play and I leave the court, I'm going to my car, what do you want me to think? What am I going to see when you play?
Yeah, you're going to see that Canisius women's basketball plays extremely hard. Regardless of score, regardless of how many active players they have that day, we play hard. We don't quit. From tip to buzzer, we're going and we are playing extremely hard and we're fighting. That's what you're going to see. And the one thing I'm really proud of is, with the exception of one game, I've had so many colleagues, college colleagues who know the game, reach out to me, understanding that we're in year one of this build, and have said, wow, you didn't win, but your team really plays hard and they're bought into everything you're trying to do. We can see it. So that's one thing, Christian, flat out, you're going to see our team play really, really hard.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Two more quick ones. Okay. So tell me something new and different about you that you've never told anybody else in an interview. It could be basketball related. It could be non-basketball related. And don't worry, this is not the moment to get all crazy on me and get nervous about it, because I've heard it all. I've heard everything. So tell me something. Different.
New and different. All right. Well, one of my things is that not many people but close friends know about me. I love to hike, and I love to run. So I love hiking. I love running. I try to get out to the West Coast at least once a year for either a hiking trip or a running adventure. So that's one thing about me is I love to get outside, and I like to hike and run.
Mhm. Awesome, awesome. One of these days, I'm gonna tell you about my friend that was in California that got stuck on a mountain. They had to,
Oh
they
no.
had to get the to get the chopper down for them. One
Was
of
it
these
weather? What happened? Weather?
days. No, they stepped off the track.
Oh my goodness.
Big no. And then I talked to them. Oh, they're gonna let us one. So they I used to talk to them every day, and it's be like, hey, you know, she's a lady. I was like, you shouldn't be on the track right before the sun drops and stuff like that. If you want to hike, do it a little bit earlier. For me, you
Yeah.
know, wouldn't listen. So one day, steps off the track, gets lost, phone, phone's about to die, can't find anything. So, panic mode comes. So now you're stuck, the sun's dropping. She calls me, what do I do? I said, look, call them, turn your phone off. She said, what's gonna happen when it gets dark? I said, well, I don't know. It could be mountain lions, it could be this, it could be
Oh
that.
no.
You want me to lie to you? And I said, don't fall off the ledge. So you just sit there and wait. And eventually we got the chopper to come down, and
Wow.
apparently it's a regular in California that people, get lost and stuck late at night.
Wow.
You know that.
Wow.
So great
Wow.
one, coach. I
Yes,
love
I've
that.
never had that experience. She's okay now though, right?
Yeah, she's alive.
Okay, that's good. Okay, she's okay. She's here. Okay, that's good.
Awesome. Oh, people are gonna love this one. They're gonna love this one for sure, coach.
Awesome. Awesome.
Okay, so anything you want to share, anything that pops in your mind that you want to share about this, or something I missed in the interview, because I don't get everything. And people walk away like, what, I wish Christian would have asked me about this, because this is very, very important to me. So this is your time to, shameless plug, whatever you want to do.
Okay. Well, I will say, if I were listening in, and I were new to coaching or wanting a piece of advice, or I don't know, just some sort of resource in terms of how I could be better, I will spit out a couple books right now that are my favorites that I would completely delve into if I wanted to get better at my craft. So one is The Talent Code by Daniel Coyle. Other one is The Culture Code by Daniel Coyle. I'm a big Daniel Coyle person. There are a couple others. I'm sure Relentless by Tim Grover is a really good one that I've also given to some players. Trying to think, Good to Great. I think that's more of a business book, but I'm pretty sure the author is Doug Collins. I might be wrong on that. But Daniel Coyle is a great author. Simon Sinek is a great author and also has some really good TED Talks. Angela Duckworth wrote Grit. That's another really good book. And she has a wonderful TED Talk that I know is really popular. And then there's one woman, her name is Amy Cuddy. She has a TED Talk about presence, and it really impacted me in a really good way. So Amy Cuddy, if you look up Amy Cuddy TED Talk, and then she has a book that came out after that TED Talk. It's called Presence. That's really, really good. And then the last book, that's not necessarily a coaching book, but any of my introverts out there will love this book. It's called Quiet by Susan Cain. And it is about introverts. And it sheds a whole nother light on introverts, because believe it or not, there's a lot more introverts out there than we think in sport. And I think the misconception is everybody's got to be rah-rah and loud and all of that. And I think if you're coaching, you probably have some introverts on your team. And I think as a coach, it can help you connect more with your introverts. So Quiet by Susan Cain is a really good one. Beyond the books that I just gave you and the couple of TED Talks, I want to thank you, Christian, for doing this. This is incredible. I'm really grateful for people like you who connect people with people, and what you're doing is you're connecting your audience with different coaches, and it's exceptional. And I'm really glad that you and I got to know each other, and I really hope to continue our relationship here.
Awesome, coach. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time. I know how busy you are. Like, I watch you guys play all the time and you're doing a great job there. And I look forward to, seeing you. Hopefully, pandemic eases up.
Yes,
Hopefully I'll see you, at the Final Four or, out recruiting or something like that. So we'll definitely stay in touch.
that sounds great, Christian. Thank you so much for your time today.
No problem. Thank you, coach.